I'd give the money I make to win and be broke. Your reaction, bro?
Well, first of all, I feel like we get a lot of those "nobody wants it more than me" quotes from Dak.
Somebody's got to want it the least.
Right? But the first thing is just stop it, Dak.
What?
I don't blame you at all for taking the $60 million. But don't insult our intelligence and say, I would give up the money to win and be broke. And I get it. You kind of don't mean it literally.
No, I think he's just.
But you could have taken $45 million and left room for other top players. You could have taken $50 million and left money for other top players. You had to go get 60. Again, I'm fine with that. Not mad at you at all. But don't sit here and say that doesn't matter. It clearly matters.
Well, and it's also, the thing is this, the NFL is not the NBA. The NBA, you can't redo deals. You know what I mean? Your deal is your deal. The NFL, you can restructure anytime you want. You know what I mean? Any moment you want, you are, because teams make players do it all the time. Like, we're going to cut you unless you take a massive pay cut. So Dak literally could go to Jerry today and be like, you know what, I've thought about it. Let's rip this thing up and I'll do 5 years for 10. It's obviously not literal. The now is to be charitable. Here's a reading of it. If someone came to me, a genie, and said, you're a 2-time defending Super Bowl champion, but we're zeroing out your bank account, I would say yes to that deal. Now, again, I don't know that he would. I don't know that he should. I don't know that anybody actually would. But that, to me, feels more like what he's saying, like I would trade it all for a ring, but simply taking less money would not have guaranteed me a ring. It would have just guaranteed that I wouldn't have the money.
Yes.
But it is a bit of a ham-fisted quote in a hard-capped league when at any point you can take less money.
Yeah. You know, it's a short segment. First off, even the genie example, no one's doing that. Yeah, here's hundreds of millions of dollars for a Super Bowl ring. I'll take the hundreds of millions of dollars. I take such issue with a quote like this because it's absolute 100% nonsense. Not even when we're taking it literally, just take his own words against him. In 24, when he was negotiating his contract, I made the video about it. I did the reaction to it, where he literally said, and I ripped him for it, he said, my responsibility is to keep raising the bar for, you know, what quarterbacks are paid. It's like he's the next man up, and he said it's his responsibility to keep, inching that salary higher and higher. And I was like, no, it's not. I went off on him. I was like, no, it's not. That's not your responsibility. Your responsibility is to win. Your responsibility is to be the best quarterback you could be for the Dallas Cowboys. Your responsibility isn't to try to keep inching, to get more and more to raise the going rate for a quarterback. That's not your responsibility. And that's what he said. That's what he said. I remember the clip. And I went off on him. So you can't say that and then essentially probably not even a year later or within a year say that. It's just nonsense. It's nonsense. Heck, even Josh Allen took like a $5 million pay cut. And it's not like this was Dak Prescott's first contract. And again, I'm not even hating on him for getting the max amount of money. I think Marcellus Wiley, really said this best like years and years and years ago. He talked about it. He's like, man, I grew up poor. I had nothing. Compton, only one of my family to do anything. It's like, I had to get as much money as I could. That's what it was all about. He goes, everyone always acts like it's all about winning. It's like, it's not for a lot of people. A lot of people, it's a job. You got to get your money. Because he was on Speak for Yourself with Mark Schlereth. And Mark was like, everyone knows it's all about winning. And, and Marcellus Wiley was like, that's not necessarily true, man. Like, that all sounds good, but like, it's, NFL, not for long. Got to get paid. And so it's like, I'm not even criticizing Dak for taking the most amount of money that he could. It's easy for me to say, like, oh, if I already had $200 million in the bank account, would I be willing to take like $5 million less or $10 million less? And it's like, I don't know, man. I've never been there before. And I said this to you before. I really hope one day I could have all that money in my bank account, and I will tell you how I feel. You guys know I'm very honest. Okay, I will let you know what it's like to have $100 million in the bank, and I'll tell you how much a million here or a million there matters to me. I'll be very honest. You got my word, okay? But I'm not there, so I really don't know. And so it's just like, I don't know. I also don't know 100% Dak's upbringing in terms of his financial stability. And remember, financial stability can come from many different sides. Some people are obviously just straight up poor, broke, on the ridge. Some people live a perfectly normal life. They go to school and they have a house and a nice looking house and a nice looking car and 2-parent family and this, that, and yet they still grow up in a very financially unstable household. And so there's a lot of money anxiety with regards to that. Just because it looks like on the surface that you have money and you go, you weren't like raised in the literal streets, doesn't mean that everything's all, great and all good. So like for people who have like money anxiety and just want to be like, I never really feel comfortable, I never really feel secure, so I it's like if I can make the money, I'm gonna go take it. Like I won't 100% fault people for that by any stretch of the imagination, but what I will call them out for is just comments like this, because it is nonsense. And I understand in one way, right? You're trying to be like, I care so much. Dak's very well spoken, he's very smart, he's very intelligent. He's a high character person, and I expect him to be able to say better things than this, because it's just nonsense. Because it's just nonsense. It really is. There's different ways to say that you want to win so badly, and I agree, right? They always say, oh, he's the first one in, first one out, or the first one in, last one out. Nobody works harder than this guy. Nobody wants it more, and it's just like, yeah. Everyone's apparently the hardest worker. Everyone's always the first one in. I mean, like, those are those nonsense platitudes that we always hear in sports. It's always like, yeah. Nobody wants to win more than me. And it's like, okay, sure. I guarantee you there's people who have never made the NFL who want to win more than you. And you know what? They just couldn't get there. I can guarantee. That's why it's always like, oh, this guy, he's made it because he just outworked everyone else. And it's like, the NFL, the MLB, the NBA are littered with endless athletes who worked as hard as you can ever imagine. They worked harder than Tom Brady. They worked harder than Patrick Mahomes. They worked harder than Steph Curry. They worked harder than MJ, and they just were not good enough. They struggled just to stay on a college team. So I always push back on those types of comments, and this is just one of those ones, because it's just like, you easily, dude, are you kidding me? Like, if you take $30 million, do you know the team that you'd be able to build? If you have a quarterback as great as Dak Prescott is, and you're only taking like 30 million, 25 million, 45 million, oh my gosh. And I wonder, a lot of contracts are standardized, obviously. Everything's pretty, status quo these days. I do wonder if there would be a way, maybe this is against the way how contracts are structured within the NFL. If you're like, I'm going to take a huge pay cut, but you have to put in the contract that you are going to get out and spend, at least X amount of dollars on, whatever it is, where it's just like, you're going to use this money to give me the tools that I need. I don't know if that's allowed in an NFL contract. My guess is probably not, but like, I don't know. Contracts are kind of crazy and everything. A lot of times what you can and can't do in contracts are, it's opaque and cloudy on purpose. So like there, a lot of stuff in law like that is always very much like, what does this actually mean? And it's like, well, depends how you want to look at it. That is very much how this all works. But and maybe if Jerry Jones was a little bit more like, I don't know, more like a normal human being, you could actually have a real conversation with him and be like, hey, I'm willing to take less money, but like, this is really what my expectations are. I don't know if I would ever feel comfortable, leaving a room after a conversation like that with Jerry Jones and feel like it's actually going in a positive way. So more of the story is, I don't fault Dak for getting the money, but I do fault you for making for making comments like this, because it's just a nonsense, and we got you on record saying the literal opposite a year ago. So come on, man. Those are just my thoughts. I'd absolutely love to hear yours. What do you guys all think about Dak Prescott? Would you give all the money in the world up and liquidate your bank account just for a Super Bowl win? Let me know in the comments below. I read every single comment. So whether you agree with me or disagree with me, either way, let's get into some discussions. Let's get in some fights. But ultimately, let's just have some fun. And please do consider subscribing. We're building an amazing community here, and I absolutely love to see you part of it. I want to build something that we all genuinely feel connected to. Something that we're really excited to be part of. I think we're on our way to doing it. And please don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, as it really does help with the visibility and the algorithm. Thank you so much. See you next time.